All right, there we go. All right, so thank you so much for joining us, Jason. Today, let's get started. Okay, so today my name is Linda Chen. I'm the Assistant Director of High School for the Sequoia Grove Alliance schools. And today we have joining us Jason Wise he is the Senior Director of Digital Content and Esports for the Sacramento Kings. And so we're going to get started and ask some questions. First question really is, tell us a little about yourself and don't leave out the fun facts.
Sure. Yeah. So I originally grew up in Texas, was born in a small town in Texas, moved to North Carolina. And then when I was 9 years old, moved to Redding, California, which is 2.5 hours north of Sacramento. And then that was around the time, 95, 96-ish, that the Kings got really, really good. And I became a huge fan of the Kings. Kind of my whole goal in life was to ultimately work for the Kings and try to just be a part of the organization in any way I could and work in the NBA any way I could. So kind of my whole high school career and my going to college, the reason I chose Sac State to go to college was because I ultimately wanted to work for the Kings. So I had a goal from a very young age that this is kind of what I wanted to do, and why I wanted to be in the NBA somehow, and especially working for my favorite team. And when I started college at Sac State, that was still my intention, and managed to earn an unpaid internship with the Sacramento Kings when I was in college doing creative services. So I did like graphic design. Always had a passion for graphic design, always had a passion for like making videos and with my friends, and like skateboarding videos, sports videos. We would play pranks on each other's and do all kinds of stuff. So I always just kind of had this background in wanting to create, and managed to find my way into an internship with the Sacramento Kings, and then have since worked my way up now, and I oversee 3 different departments. So digital, which is our social media, and so we run all of our like Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, all of that on that side. Then our content team, which is our video production team, which creates videos for all of those channels. And then our esports team, which is something new. So we have a 2K team that plays NBA 2K professionally against other teams across the league. And so I oversee that team as well. So been around the block with this organization. I've now been with the Sacramento Kings for 17 seasons. So a really long time. And yeah, I've been loving every minute of it. And I can't wait to kind of tell you all more about my role here and how I got to where I am today.
Wow, that's really cool. So you actually started with just, I want to work for the Kings. Not, I don't even know what I want to do, but I want to work for the Kings.
Yeah, I knew I was talented, like a talented artist, and always kind of had a passion for art and creating. And I was like, all right, there's an open graphic design intern. I'm going to try for it and see what they think. And I mean, my skill level at that point was to be completely frank, not very good. And for whatever reason, they took a chance on me, and I've stuck around ever since.
I love that. That's so fun. So awesome. All right. So your title is Senior Director of Digital Content and Esports. That's a big title. What does that mean? Would you describe what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, so it's actually Senior Director of Digital, Content and Esports. So that's 3 different departments, as I've kind of referenced. And so my day-to-day is essentially overseeing those 3 departments and all the output that is created from each of those teams. So we have, I want to say we're up to 19 staffers across those, actually just across digital and content. And then we have 7 on the esports side, including the team. So I oversee probably, I think we're up to 25 people now, that all report directly through me and run, like I said, all of our social media channels, create all of our video content, and then play NBA 2K. And so my job really is to make sure that we're activating all of our channels. We're creating unique and engaging content for our fans. And then on the esports side, my goal is to, one, make the team a profitable venture. So how are we creating content that's like sellable assets for partnerships? And then how are we winning? Like part of what's really cool about esports is if you win tournaments, you win money. So the whole, goal of that team is to be competitive and compete and try to win these tournaments and win these cash prizes. So it's kind of all over the place in what I do day to day. But definitely makes every day super interesting, and no days are ever alike. So that's cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but how did you get started in your career? What were the requirements, if there were any, or did you kind of just fall into it, education, skills that you needed for this position?
Yeah, the requirement, because I started in a much more technical field than I think I am in now, being in graphic design in that department, was I took a lot of graphic design courses. I took a lot of video editing courses throughout college. Um, and in high school, actually. High school, since I was graduating high school in 2004, we were just kind of on the precipice of what social media looked like. Like that was really the start. My freshman year of college was when Facebook was invented, so only college kids could get on it. So I remember being one of the first groups of people that was on it in December of 2004. So I think I was kind of lucky in a sense that I was one of those first adopters of social media and got to really be the people that were in the age group really that kind of got to approach social media from like a, let's see what this can do and let's try to figure it out and let's tinker and mess with things and have fun. So a lot of what my background was in creation. And so I took, like I said, a lot of classes on graphic design and video editing, found my way in to this job with an unpaid internship in graphic design. So um, what's funny is I didn't actually graduate with any type of graphic design like concentration in college. I graduated with a degree in communication, but my passion was always that side of it and the creation of it. So I think more so than even what I had learned in school, my passion for it was really what drove the Sacramento Kings to hire me. And then like I'll reference later in this discussion. Um, I think the passion for what you do will drive much more than I think even your initial talent level. And I think that was big for how I got started and ultimately how I stuck and moved up from there.
Well, that's nice. Wow. I remember those early days of Facebook. You kind of had it was invite only, kind of
Yep. Yeah.
exclusive. I remember those days way
Yeah.
back.
You had to have a edu address
Yeah.
.edu to get in. So it was cool that it was kind of private in that sense that all the just college kids got to be in there first.
I know. And now it's just our parents on Facebook. So it's
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah. I think high school kids now probably don't even use Facebook,
Nope,
which
not at
to be
all.
honest, I don't either. So it's fair.
All right. So can you tell us about a day in the life? So you mentioned having a pretty much a day just changes day by day. So what does a typical day look like, or are there typical days?
Yeah, there are definitely typical days. Like during the season, when we have games, home games or road games, it's a lot more formulaic in how we approach the day. So we would generally get in, and just for kind of background, we have a weekly social calendar that we work through. So we generally only plan things a week in advance, just because of how much social media evolves from day to day. So we have like kind of our baseline weekly plan. And then on game days, we have a whole host of other obligations that we have, whether it be with partnerships or other content that we're supposed to capture throughout the course of the day. So we generally have a morning meeting on game days to go through kind of our game day prep. It's essentially a pre-production meeting that runs for both our digital and our content teams. So that basically breaks down everything that is required of us to do from a digital perspective on social, which I think rounds out to being somewhere around 20 to 30 different posts that day. And then on the content side, what are we shooting? How are we shooting? Who on our team is shooting the game? Who's shooting pre-game press conferences? Who's shooting post-game press conferences? Who, say we have a coach mic'd up, who is specifically focused on that mic'd up coach. So it really, on game days, it's a little bit more formulaic. On non-game days, that's when kind of our creativity gets to shine a little bit more. And we, one, follow that social media plan that we've had, but then we also are able to kind of freestyle based on what has happened in previous games, what's upcoming, if there's something cool that's happening around the arena. And that's really only on the Kings side. So one thing I didn't mention was we also oversee our Golden One Center social channels. So every concert that comes into the venue, we're a part of and we're covering. We also have Stockton Kings, which is our G League team. So we do all of the content associated with that and cover all of those games. And then we also have Kingsguard Social, which is our eSports team, which I oversee as well, and all of the social channels associated with that. So I want to say we have upwards of 35 different social channels that we're posting to on a daily basis. So really, there's freedom in that on those non-game days, but there's also a pretty robust schedule that we plan week over week for all of those channels. So it's pretty much my day in the life is making sure that we're getting all of that stuff done, and that we're creating it not only in a high quality, but also we're reviewing messaging and making sure that there's no errors in messaging, that we're tagging the correct people and sponsors. So there's a lot of nuance and like fine attention to detail that happens in my day to day.
Wow, it's very organized. You have to stay on top of
It
a
has
lot
to
of
be. Yeah,
content.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you like about your job and what do you dislike?
My favorite part about the job, I've always said this, is being creative and being allowed to be creative. The coolest thing about the NBA is we've often been looked at as kind of a leader in the space of social media, and we're the ones who take risks and we're the ones who try new things. And so that's always been fun to have that kind of autonomy to try and do new things across digital and content. One of the things I guess I would say I dislike is, I think the challenge on my side as a leader of the department and those who have worked and ever worked in like creative fields is when you're trying to create and be innovative every single day, there's certainly a level of burnout. So I think the challenge, and maybe it's not dislike, but it's just a byproduct of the job, is that it's a lot as I've kind of referenced. And there's a lot of eyes on everything that we do. I mean, everything goes out to millions of people. We have millions of followers across all of our channels. So any little mistake will certainly be pointed out to you by fans. And I guess another challenge is that we, as the digital and content team, don't have any say in what the outcome of the game is. So we're kind of beholden to how the team plays often. So there have been times over the course of my tenure where, you know, the team hasn't performed well, and it kind of is just a wall of negativity that is directed towards our social media channels, which is kind of tough to just, you know, like you kind of have to take it in and read it all. And so it's not necessarily a dislike, it's just kind of a negative byproduct of working in professional sports, that you know, there's the positives and negatives that come with team performance as well.
Yeah. And with social media, I feel like people sometimes forget that there's a person behind all those posts. There's
They
like a team
absolutely do.
working
Yeah.
on all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely do.
Oh,
That's
yeah. All right. So what kind of hours and shifts do you have? Do you have regular hours during the workday? Are there, you know, if the team's playing, do you have longer hours then?
Yeah, so like right now in the off season, our times are much more traditional. We'll generally come in, everybody will be in by 10 a.m. They'll probably bounce out of here by 5:36. And then during the season, that's where it gets to be the long hours, nights, weekends, holidays, that kind of working in entertainment you get accustomed to. So generally on game days, if you're working a game day, most people are in by noon to 1 o'clock. And then like leaving, I'll say during the playoff games this season, we were probably leaving here at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. usually. So that's, I think that's a 14-hour day. So that happens pretty frequently on game days, especially if there's a big win, of which we had several in the playoffs and then several during the regular season. Like, what's kind of interesting is if you lose, there's less work. If you win, there's a lot more work. So us being really good this season actually ended up creating longer work hours and longer days, because there's so much cool content to share. And ultimately, our job is to promote and project the team. And so when they're winning, we obviously want to promote it more. So there's just more that we can do across all of our channels. And those of you who have been on social media and grown up on social media, you can really post at all hours of the day, and you can post until you're blue in the face, and there's no real limit to how much you can do. So that's kind of a challenge of the job. But those game days on wins and double overtimes and everything gets longer and longer, can be really long, but we make up for it in the off season with just much more traditional work days, and then more off days, and there's just less to do in the off season. So it kind of evens out over time.
I know. Do you still want to root for the Kings when they win, even though you have to work till 1 a.m.? That's like
No,
a double-edged sword for you.
yeah, there's kind of like an industry joke that nobody ever wants to go to overtime, no matter what. Like, you'd rather lose than go to overtime. So that's kind of like something that people across the industry have always said, like, please no overtime. But no, like, being through the 17 years that I've been through, like, we are ready to win, and winning the 48 games that we won this year and the 3 games in the playoffs that we won, like, that was awesome, really cool.
Just no overtime. Just win it fast.
Yep. The double overtimes even worse, triple overtime, which we've had. Like, then you're getting into 11 o'clock before you start to even
Oh,
do
wow.
any post game content. So
I mean, for fans, it's an exciting game but I imagine for everyone involved, it's exhausting.
yeah, because really most of our work doesn't happen until after the game ends. So
Um,
the later that game goes, the later we start. Luckily, though, we're not on the East Coast, because then you have a 10 p.m. start on the West Coast, and you could be up until 4 o'clock in the morning.
oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what's the most challenging aspect of managing digital content?
I think it's a lot of it, in what I've seen over the years, is just attention to detail. There's So just for reference, this season alone, which is 7 months, we posted over 10,500 different posts across all of our and this is just Kings, just across our Kings digital channels. So I don't know the exact breakdown of that post per day, but that's a lot. And that every single one of those posts comes with messaging. Every single one comes in different sizes and captions, and has to be edited different ways. And so there's a lot of approval processes. There's a lot of, like I said, attention to detail, that is really, really important. And it's honestly really hard, especially if you're tired or if you've been doing this over and over again. So that's probably one of the most challenging. And then the other, just from a leadership perspective, is just trying to manage burnout. Working in social media, as I referenced, it can be a 24-hour a day job if you want it to be. So there is a lot of times in which it's important that we recognize that challenge, and then provide opportunity for rest, because that is often kind of an afterthought during the season, just with there's games every other day, and there's 82 of them, so it adds up pretty quickly. So probably those two.
All right. Thank you. What advice do you have for students who with varied interests? So you mentioned just being interested in graphic design and then falling into this job, and just slowly it evolved into managing social media, and then also the esports aspect. What about students who aren't really sure what they want to do yet? What kind of advice do you have for them?
I mean, I've told people, like, who have wanted to be hired into digital, and social media, that having a wide variety of skill sets is always a good thing, in my opinion. So try everything. Like, one thing that I think kind of worked really well for me when I was in high school was that I tried basically every type of creation that I could. Like, I was just really into all of it, and had a passion for all of it. So I've seen other teams, I've seen other hiring managers get into this mode of like, very specialized, which I don't necessarily agree with. Like there's a lot of companies hiring specifically for TikTok right now. Like we want someone to come in who's active and ready to just do TikTok. And that to me is super limiting. You don't see a lot of growth in that type of field. Like there's no way really, if you're a TikTok specific person, that you're going to ultimately become, you know, the president of the organization. That just seems limiting to me. So I've always told people who have wanted or had interest in ultimately working in this career to have a wide variety of not only things that they're interested in, but things that they work at. So if it's graphic design, if it's video editing, if it's writing, writing is incredibly important and often overlooked. Um, if it's photography, you know, any of that stuff can help make you a more well-rounded, uh, not only person that we potentially want to hire, but just you, it gives you a lot more opportunity to fit into a lot of different holes that companies are trying to fill. So um, I would say definitely don't limit yourself to just one thing and try. Like you don't necessarily have to be the best at everything, but you could certainly be good at everything. And that's a lot more valuable to me in a digital media space where you have to create for, like I said, you know, 45 different platforms, than if you were just really, really good at one thing.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I feel like you, because you had interest in all, different things and tried all the things, you like really fit your role because you can really juggle all the different tasks and help keep track of all the details and
Yeah.
pull
And it
from
gives
different
it,
skill sets, right?
yeah, and it gives me a little bit more, like as a leader in this organization, it gives me more of a footing to stand on when I try to provide feedback too across all these different mediums because I've done it. So I think that helps as well if you know, just if you're thinking about growth as well.
Yeah, thank you. What is a common misconception about what you do?
The big one is always, and I'm sure people have heard this, is that we're all interns. There's always interns that just do all of the social media. That's kind of the running, I guess, joke about working in social media is that it's all just run by a bunch of interns and nobody has any idea of what they're doing, which is couldn't be farther from the truth. Social media really is marketing now. It's really big business. Content creation is really, really at the highest level I think that it's ever been. So I think the common misconception is that we're all just a bunch of young people sitting around posting on social media all day with no real rhyme or reason. When in fact that everything that we do has a lot of planning behind it. It has a lot of eyes and ears behind it. There's nothing that you can do. And, you know, like we're one of 30 teams across in the world that are at this level. And so it's very big business and um, there's a lot of opportunity for error. So they would never really entrust that big of a platform with a bunch of people that didn't have oversight. So um, it's a hard job and it's a lot. And but it also can be really fun. Kind of what the misconception is that it's fun and easy and you just kind of get to goof around all day. There's certainly that part of it, but a lot of it is a lot more organized than that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. If you're posting to millions of viewers, you have a lot of a high accountability.
Yeah, and you know, if you've followed social media closely at all over the last 15 years, there's been a lot of people that have made errors that have been fired, and so there's a lot of opportunity for failure as well. So it's not a super light and breezy job all the time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. What advice do you have for young people who are looking to get into esports?
So yeah, whether you're playing or want to be on the other sides of it, I will say that one thing that I've learned from being around these athletes that have been on our esports team is it is a grind. It's dedication. Like these guys don't just play it, every day for an hour a day. They play it every day for 12 to 14 hours a day. They live and breathe the sport. It's much like becoming a professional athlete in real, in real sport, I guess, real quote unquote sports. Um, there's real dedication, and you're not going to get into it just by, having fun with it. They really train, they go through drills like any other athlete would. Um, they have scouting, like they do it all just like you would on the NBA side, which is really cool. But there, one other piece of advice is there is a lot more than just that in esports. Much like, the Sacramento Kings, there's marketing departments, there's ticket sales, there's creative sides, there's social teams. Esports is big business as well, and it's becoming bigger and bigger by the day. And so I think much like you would any other digital professional field, um, all of those jobs exist in esports as well. But I think with esports more so than maybe the NBA, you really, really, really need to know what you're talking about when you get into esports, because there is a steep learning curve, and there is it's changing every day, much more so than maybe traditional basketball has over the course of time. So yeah, it's a really cool industry, really rapidly growing industry, but also a pretty hard one to get into.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Those are all the questions I have planned out. But does anyone want to ask questions from the audience? You can either type in the chat or you can pick up the mic and ask.
And we got a Go Kings in there. I like that.
I know, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Emmanuel, I got so Emmanuel asked, did you get any discounts for Kings games or events? So because I am a senior director, I actually get season tickets, which is pretty cool. So
Nice.
I had yeah, one of the things I always said when I was in high school and college, I was like, I really want to work with the Kings. And it wasn't necessarily because I wanted to work for the Kings, it's because I wanted free tickets. And I figured like that's got to be the way to do it. Like they'll pay me to go to games, like that's the ultimate. But yeah, I do get free season tickets with my title, and my wife actually works for the Kings as well, so she gets season tickets also. So we have a block of 4. So we're pretty spoiled, and definitely a major perk for working with the team.
And are you like,
um,
do friends and family just come knocking at your door when the Kings are starting to win?
Yeah, there was quite the battle for all of our playoff tickets this year, actually. So pretty funny. But yeah, it's everybody knows that we have 2 extras, and everybody tries to get in on those tickets for sure. Isabella asks, who's your favorite player on this current team? Is that that's the question? My favorite player on this current team is definitely Malik Monk. He, as from a content perspective, from a social media perspective, he is the most animated person on the team, and he's the kind of the most fun person to cover, because of he's so animated and fun loving, and makes our job a lot easier. And any time that I've interacted with him, he's been super awesome to work with, and generally just a really good guy. You know the Keegan Murray chant, love it. What's funny is that actually, when they started the Keegan Murray chant this year, they didn't actually tell him about it. They didn't ask if he was like cool with it or anything, and it just started. And now it's one of his, it's one of his favorite things, and I think it'll probably continue throughout the rest of his career, which is pretty cool.
And then when you find moments like that, do you just like go with it for social media? You're like, okay, we're going to take that and we're going to really.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about marketing nowadays, especially for an NBA team, is we can come up with slogans all day long for what we think the season will be about. And then, something will happen in the season with the team, and suddenly we're the beam team, like I guess that, that's our slogan now. We're the beam team. We're lighting the beam. Like all these things are happening where, a couple of years ago, it was the Liddy committee was like a thing that was invented by the team. So we definitely keep our ear to the team to let them, they basically tell us how they want to be marketed and how they want to be talked about. So kind of a cool byproduct, especially of having this, special season that we had this year, that all of these things that we had nothing to do with kind of came out of it and became the mantra of the team, which is pretty cool.